The 14th of July, and the night in Moscow feels like a war zone. Trump's missiles are flying toward Moscow.
A second drone has arrived. A lot are flying toward the city. Shit! It hit right by his face. Oh, a second one! Take that! Seriously!
700 drones, storm shadows, Neptunes all over Russia. Sirens are wailing in Moscow and St. Petersburg. Trump is giving Ukraine missiles that can reach Moscow and St. Petersburg.
That's it. Now a third one is on fire. That blue one is on fire. The main thing is, I went out to hang the laundry, you see, and there was nothing. Oh Lord, have mercy.
In Tula, the design bureau that manufactures RPG missiles is ablaze. In Dubna, the Kronstadt plant has been attacked again.
They have one target, Kronstadt and DMZ.
And in Lukovici, there was a direct hit on the aircraft plant where MiGs are assembled.
Look at that thick billowing smoke now rising ominously into the sky. It's quite a sight.
The Ukrainian armed forces launched a massive strike with missiles and drones on defense enterprises.
Let's hit it now. Oh, you can see it really well. That wasn't us at all. There it is, the cloud.
Moscow region, Tula, Kursk, Tver explosions and smoke everywhere. The authorities are jamming communications and the internet. The FSB is tightening security measures against sabotage. Muscovites are in a panic.
Oh shit. There's about to be a shockwave. You'd better duck. What's going on there? It probably overheated. The power plant is on fire. So there's a substation over there.
And in Crimea, there's panic too. There's a 26-kilometer traffic jam at the exit. Ukrainian missiles are heading toward Jankoy.
This is fucked!
This isn't an isolated strike. It's a new phase of the war. And it's only just beginning. We'll discuss it with Roman Svitan.
That's not thunder. I thought it was thunder. No, that's not thunder. Well, there you go. The second drone just arrived.
Lightning, friends, it's July 14th and there are 300 to 700 drones, storm shadows and Neptunes. Sirens wailing all across Russia. Trump is giving Ukraine missiles that can reach Moscow and Tatarstan. Gas pipelines in Siberia have been blown up, the Kstovo oil refinery is ablaze and the Russian fleet is under attack. After the Pautina strike on Russian airfields, there's an urgent construction of bunkers. The SBU eliminated the killers who murdered the security service officer. And in the skies over Belarus, there's a drone war. Helicopters are shooting down Russian drones. There's a collapse in Crimea. 2,000 cars are currently lined up at the Kerch Bridge. There's a missile threat there. The long-range Neptune is in action. And the American Institute for the Study of War reports that there's panic in the Kremlin, and Putin is asking Trump not to interfere with the offensive in eastern Ukraine. We'll discuss this new phase of the war. This phase is already blazing over Moscow with renowned military analyst Roman Svitan. Roman Grigorievich, welcome.
Thank you. Wishing everyone good health.
Roman Grigorievich, leaks from the Pentagon. The US is supplying Ukraine with long-range missiles that can reach all the way to Moscow. So should the Russians get ready?
Well, we need to understand what kind of missiles we're talking about. So what missiles could the United States potentially provide us that could reach Moscow? Well, first, there's the PRSM. This is a ballistic missile with a range of 500 kilometers, which can be launched from the HIMARS systems we already have. This is one of the missiles that can reach Moscow with a range of 500 kilometers. There's also the Jason missile for the F-16. There are modifications of it that can go up to 950 kilometers and 500 to reach Moscow. So they can also reach. So what other missile could the US, for example, give us based on the launchers we already have? It's important to understand clearly, these aren't ordinary missiles. You can't just launch them with a slingshot. Although the Russians did try to launch an ovary with a slingshot, they didn't have enough elastic from their underwear. Now, here's a very important question for us. We obviously and clearly need to effectively use these missiles with their designated launchers. The primary launchers we currently have available are the F-16 fighter jet for the JAS-M missile system and, for example, the HIMARS artillery rocket system for the PRSM missile. Let's see. It wouldn't be bad. There's definitely hope. And especially now that Graham has really gotten involved, if I can put it that way, seriously. I mean, this is someone who genuinely supports us. If only Trump would bring in his team from his first term, like Pompeo and Bolton, that old hardline Republican team, those are the hawks who would tear Moscow apart in no time. The thing is, right now, you've still got people like Bitkov and his associates lingering there. As long as they're hanging around, these other people aren't in yet, but I think it's coming. The process has started, basically. Most likely, things will move from rhetoric to action. And then we'll see what happens. One possibility is that right now, Trump is trying to pressure Putin to resolve the Middle Eastern issue, the one he promised regarding Iran. But Iran is digging in its heels. Iran is already telling the Russians to get lost on certain issues, realizing that the Russians will betray them again. That's why Trump may have no other option now but to actually give us missiles, and then we'll see where we launch them. But the first target, of course, will be Moscow, the Kremlin. The second will be the oil refineries. And third, Crimea's Kerch Bridge and all the military facilities in Crimea that are trapped between the two seas.
Russian military correspondents have already officially reported 300 to 700 drone Storm Shadows, Neptune missile across Russia. Sirens will be going off soon. They are expecting a large-scale missile and drone offensive. Dear audience, please like this video and write in the comments what you expect from the new phase of the war. Do you really expect that all of this will happen? Roman Grigorievich, regarding these statements from Russian military correspondents, why are they writing this? Are they really afraid today because last week they were writing about thousands of drones heading to Moscow and St. Petersburg? Now they've written about 300, 700 drones, Storm Shadows, Neptunes, and Moscow, St. Petersburg. Get ready.
Well, the thing is, Trump likes performances like that, shows with lots of spotlights, some kind of fire shows, and so on and so forth. He announced that there would be a statement regarding Russia, and the Russians, of course, applying this meme, so to speak, of the great artist to him, are predicting that indeed, under his statement about Russia, under the current pressure on Russia, we might be able to accomplish a certain task. Moreover, it could have been initiated by Trump himself, especially recently. It's not for nothing that Kerlok came here. He'll be sunbathing with us for a week. So all of this could be connected precisely to these actions. This is what Russian bloggers are planning, or rather predicting. So from the perspective of artistic delivery, they're predicting correctly, because there are some pretty serious fireworks we could set off, for example, based on the number of small drones that have recently flown into Russia. Since there were several dozen, but we can produce more, it means they're being stockpiled somewhere, and naturally this is aimed at Moscow, I would say at the Kremlin itself. And honestly, if I were in the Russian shoes right now, especially after Trump's statement about Russia, I'd be careful not to stick my neck out any further than the bomb shelters.
Friends, please like this video, and in the comments let us know what you think about our tandem with Roman Grigorievich 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Roman Grigorievich, here's another interesting piece of news. Gas pipelines in Siberia have been blown up. They say it's yet another special operation. 3,000 kilometers from Moscow, suddenly, unexpectedly, Siberia is under fire. The gas pipeline is burning. What do you think?
These are our concerned citizens. How many times have we already thanked our concerned citizens who understand, in order to bring down the Russian Empire, in order for those republics that Moscow once grabbed to break free from this Moscow oppression, it is necessary to destroy the main so-called clay feet of this colossus. Well, a colossus with feet of clay. So these clay feet are Russia's oil industry, which is why it is burning and will continue to burn. This is just the beginning. Here it is, the beginning of this Russian end. If the whole world joins in, if everyone, wherever they are, sees some oil rig, some gas pipeline, anything connected to the Russian oil industry, the oil and gas sector, and starts to set it on fire, believe me, the Russian colossus will collapse just like the Soviet Union once did. The optimal option is to break it down from the inside using exactly these kinds of mechanisms, which is what we're talking about right now. Indeed, pipelines are burning now, and it's actually quite easier. Concerned people are handling these issues. They simply set fire to stubble or so-called dry grass through which the gas and oil pipelines run, and this puts them out of commission. Somewhere something breaks, somewhere it explodes, somewhere it burns down, and somewhere it just stops because there's a fire hazard. So these are the kinds of mechanisms being used now, and those who care are very effective. They're as effective, for example, as our long-range strike capability.
We always talk about the need to attack oil refineries. We've been heard because just in the past day, there was a strike on the oil refinery in Kistovo. Everything is burning there. The storage tanks were attacked. Roman Grigorievich, what kind of damage is there now? How do you assess the current operations against the oil refineries?
Well, Kstov-Kostovo south along the Volga on the right bank from Nizhny Novgorod, it's several dozen kilometers away. There really is one of Russia's major plants. It processes 17 million tons of oil per year, and it's among the top 10 oil refineries in Russia. We've already struck in the Kstovo area. We hit there, and before that, we targeted the bitumen receiving facility. That's also one of the ways to stop an oil refinery. The thing is, at any oil refinery during production, during oil processing, fuel oil is produced as a sort of secondary layer, and it has to be disposed of somewhere. The fuel oil receivers, which every refinery has, are constantly overflowing, and the fuel oil is taken somewhere, it's used somewhere, mainly in bitumen production. So if you strike at the fuel oil or bitumen, you can basically block the refinery. And these strikes have happened before. We once talked about strikes on the bitumen receiving facility, but as for the plant itself, there haven't been any strikes for a long time. How long have we been talking about this? For about 4 months now, we've been saying that it's about time to finally take action. And whether or not we were heard, most likely a decision was made to continue the so-called sanitation, whoever carried it out. That's not so important anymore, the defense forces of Ukraine. Nevertheless, serious damage was inflicted on the plant in Kstov. The Russians tried to cover it up, meaning they did not release any official information whatsoever, but you simply cannot fool the internet. The sheer number of videos and extensive footage currently available online clearly shows that it was indeed a very successful and impactful strike.
Another important topic after the SBU's web operation. Russia has urgently started building bunkers and hangars at its airfields, according to the American Institute for the Study of War. At the airbase in Koluno, Kursk region, 10 fortified bunkers, 12 concrete shelters, and 8 hangars have appeared. Similar structures are being built at the Saki airfield in Crimea. We remember that as a result of the special operation, Ukrainian drones struck 41 Russian strategic aviation aircraft. Roman Grigorievich, the floor is yours.
Well, from the standpoint of ensuring security, it's the right step for protection, say, against drones, but only those with a small payload. In Kalino and in Saki, and at about a dozen other airfields, the Russians are now trying to rebuild some with embankments, some with actual bunker enclosures. There are certain mechanisms in place, but these are not underground or, say, rock-based structures. In other words, there are ways we'll find mechanisms to burn or damage a Russian aircraft, even if it's in a certain shelter. If one person invents something, someone else will definitely find a way to break it. First, you just have to rack your brain to figure out how to do it. I think we'll find the means, but the optimal solution, of course, is long-range missiles. For example, the ones Trump is threatening to give us, or at the moment, those same JASSMs with warheads weighing several hundred kilograms, well, those will definitely break open almost any ground shelter, no matter what kind of aircraft is hidden inside. So let's wait. There is hope for Trump that he will come to his senses now war. Well, not exactly come to his senses, but for him, Ukraine is like a club to hit Putin over the head with. And right now, he actually needs that, since things aren't going so well for the United States in the Middle East.
The number of vehicles waiting in line at the Kerch Bridge has exceeded 2,000. All of this is happening to the sound of sirens. Long-range Neptunes are attacking the occupied peninsula, reports Crimean Wind and other Telegram channels. At the moment, there are 1,500 vehicles on the Taman side, and more than 715 vehicles are waiting in line on the Kerch side. Roman Grigorievich, what does this indicate? And let's talk about our conspiracies in Crimea.
Well, not 2000, but 2001. The thing is, that vehicle probably arrived at Budanov's. He counted 2,000, passed it on, and then we put it into the information stream after having some coffee in Yalta. And in principle, we can use information from the main intelligence directorate at this point. So 2,000 plus one, that's Budanov. He's back there standing in line, and he organized and straightened out all that Russian business. Well, right now, the Russians are really having a meltdown. They are freaking out because, first of all, they've worked themselves up into this hysteria. They understand perfectly well that lately, it's not for nothing that we haven't been striking Russia with a large number of missiles or drones. There's a certain buildup going on. As we've discussed before, the optimal way to break through the Russian frontal air defense is with a large number of drones. And now they feel that it's almost about to happen. All the more so now, given Trump's statements. So I will repeat this crucial message once again, and this particularly applies to all ethnic Ukrainians. It is critically important to try and stay much closer to designated bomb shelters and protective underground facilities. And under no circumstances should you ignore the urgent air raid alerts that are issued for your safety and well-being. This only concerns ethnic Ukrainians living in Russia. We still remember you in this regard. As for bloggers making a fuss right now, well, there are reasons for that. There really are reasons.
Germany will not supply Taurus missiles to Ukraine, the country's defense minister announced. Pistorius also stated that Berlin has already delivered 3 out of the 12 existing Patriot systems to Ukraine. There are only 6 left in Germany, 2 more systems were provided to Poland, and 1 is constantly unavailable due to maintenance or training. That's very few, the minister says. Especially considering the NATO objectives we have to meet, we definitely can't give away any more. I plan to discuss with the head of the Pentagon my preliminary initiative to allow Germany to purchase 2 Patriot systems from the US for Ukraine. Roman Grigorievich, why did the Germans decide not to supply us with Taurus? And how important will the negotiations with the Pentagon really be for Germany to purchase Patriots from the US for us?
Well, they looked at how Russia's partners are helping it, if you can call them that. Like, for example, the Chinese who are supplying parts for their Sunflower 200 under the guise of Geran drones. And so you get Geran 2, Geran 3. Now there's the Harpy and also the Fury. They're producing basically the same Chinese models in Izhevsk, but they're branded as Russian. The Israelis, for example, built a 4-post. Let's say it's an Israeli drone, long range and heavy, which under the name 4-post, the Russians are using against us. It's the same story with the Lancet, the Israeli Harop 400 and the Russian Lancet. So it seems like the Russians, the Israelis and the Chinese are not officially involved, yet Russian Gerans are flying at us, as well as the same Furies and Harpies, which are just Gerans plus Lancets and 4-posts. And they all act as if they have nothing to do with it. This is most likely the same path that Germany has taken. Will be supplied with those same Taurus missiles, only in disassembled form. We just screw in 3 or 4 bolts, but there will be a bucket of paint and a stencil, say Taras. Not Taurus, but Taras. And our Tarases will fly where they need to go, to the same places the Tauruses would have gone. That's the kind of approach we're talking about. Well, if that's convenient for our German partners, then why not use it? After all, it's another way to strike at the Russians. Plus, there's the question of supplying us with certain types of air defense weapons, like the Patriot system and missiles for the Patriot as well. The fact that the Germans have now practically taken on the responsibility for security, firstly through their own production. They've launched a production line for PAC-3, like the Spanish did. They looked at the Spanish example. It's a very smart decision. In other words, it's better to produce consumables domestically. Starting next year, we will begin receiving missiles, anti-missiles, anti-ballistic specifically from this production line. The third fact concerns Patriots from Germany. Plus, Germany is now trying at least to buy back several of those same Patriots from the United States. They took some Patriots from Israel for re-equipping purposes, meaning, well, they returned them back. There are certain relations with Israel in this regard. By the way, these few Patriots, they are brought up to standard, could be paid for by the European Union, or Germany itself might supply them to us. They could also purchase a certain batch of Patriot missiles, which are very important to us right now. In other words, Germany is now directly involved in ensuring not only its own defense capability, not only that of the European Union, of course. Naturally, all of Europe is under our, so to speak, attentive leadership and with our mechanisms for ensuring this security. So you could say that the Germans, now Germany, is becoming the main driving force in ensuring Europe's security. But what's most interesting and beneficial for us is that they see us as one of the key cornerstones in ensuring the security of the eastern borders. And that's good for us. There will be Patriots, there will be Patriot missiles, and there will also be long-range Taras systems, which are very similar to the Taurus, and so on. The main thing is that they hand over a bucket of paint, because you can't give our people money, they will steal it. But if they hand over a bucket, at least that will be enough for a few dozen stencils.
Roman Grigorievich. Then this information that came out literally at the end of last week, that already in July, meaning right now the armed forces of Ukraine will receive the first Ukrainian long-range missiles, which were funded by Germany. What kind of long-range missiles are we talking about?
Well, those could very well be the Star systems. So the question of how all these will be transferred, how it will be, for example, formalized, that's a different matter. Everything depends, and especially since all of this will be decided behind closed doors. In a closed setting, we are unlikely to find out from our own or German information sources. The Russians will immediately start making noise about it. Just like they're making noise now about our Neptunes and Storm Shadows in Crimea, also make noise about the Taras systems, somehow finding German spare parts there. The Russians will definitely find Hitler's business card there too, just to show a connection with fascist Germany from the last millennium. Well, for the sake of the information flow, well, look, we'll discuss this issue later.
As for Putin, as I understand it, during his last conversation with Trump, he made a statement that he asked Trump not to interfere with the offensive in eastern Ukraine. He needs a few more months to reach the borders, he wrote into the constitution. How do you assess these statements? And of course, what is Russia's capability today for a military offensive at the end of July, in August, and during the autumn campaign?
This is nothing new for us. For the second year now, we've been talking for several months about how Putin's offensive plan is set out in the legal framework and is enshrined in the Russian constitution. They have added 5 of our regions, Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, Kherson, and Crimea, to their constitution, and naturally they will try to seize them one by one. By the way, they've already taken Luhansk, they seized Crimea back in 2014, and they recently captured Luhansk region by pushing us out from near Bilohorivka. So you could say that right now, almost the entire Luhansk region has been captured by Russian forces, and this plan, we've talked about it billions of times. In other words, they are systematically trying, step by step, to push our troops beyond the borders of these administrative units, beyond the administrative borders of these regions. So there's really nothing new to say here, especially after us. But the question of capabilities, that's a different matter. At the moment, the Russians don't have the capabilities without the number of reserves they're trying to bring in for a second wave. They simply don't have them right now. Why does this summer offensive seem so sluggish? Some of our politicians have already started happily saying that it's all fizzled out, that the Russian offensive is over, and so on and so forth. No, it's just a sluggish start. Why? Because by May 9th, they had practically exhausted all their reserves, using them up before May 9th to solve some political issues. They simply didn't have enough reserves for the start of the summer campaign. But the second wave will come around August or September. These are exactly those 60 days that some publications are now mentioning in the conversation between Putin and Trump. That's the second wave, August, September. And we need to be ready for this wave, not to give up, not to ride the waves of euphoria about the fact that the Russians had a poor start. In this sense, they haven't even started yet, if we're talking about offensive operations, because the main reserves of the second wave haven't arrived. These could include North Koreans as well. Definitely either directly or, for example, in a rotation mode, about 100 to 120,000 Russians deployed in the Kursk and Belgorod directions will move to the Eastern Front. That's why Putin will, this summer, more precisely in this summer campaign, it will only end with the onset of frost, meaning he will spend several months trying to push our troops further out of Donetsk and Zaporizhia regions. We cannot relax. We need to mobilize our security forces and request a sufficient amount of military aid from our partners. They are providing support now, and we are very grateful to them, truly, and participating in these processes, not allowing Putin to seize Donbass and Zaporizhia because he has already taken Luhansk. We have already lost Luhansk region. So that leaves the Donetsk region. And I want to emphasize again, we still have the opportunity to stop him in various ways without destroying the rear areas. Here, for example, there is hope for Trump because we need at least 1,000-kilometer range missiles, at least 1,000 kilometers, so that we could reach, in terms of radius, from somewhere near Moscow to the Volga, and even as far as the Caucasus. Why? because we also need to work on the North Caucasus. There are many military facilities there, the Mostok Airfield. In other words, there are plenty of targets to strike.
Roman Grigorievich, we're approaching a very important topic. This weekend, on Sunday, the SBU eliminated the killers who murdered Colonel Voronich of the security service in Kyiv. The head of the SBU, Malyuk, officially made a statement and released the video. I think all of Ukraine saw it. But this actually raises the main question: the number of Russian agents operating on Ukrainian territory who are committing a huge number of war crimes, acts of treason and collaboration against our country, Ukraine. And how can Ukrainian special services work with these traitors, these war criminals today?
Well, this couple, at least according to some information, the Azerbaijanis entered through the Moldovan border. The man is 43 years old, and the woman is about 3 or 4 years younger. The woman was let through, the man was turned back, but he later got through. He crossed the border illegally. So this couple was going out to carry out a combat mission. It was really a combat mission, most likely assigned by Russian special services with the involvement of some criminal elements. So that's how they set up this whole thing. Let me repeat, this is information that's available on the internet, not fully verified, but at least it allows us to anticipate some of the Russians' further actions as well. There are a lot of Russians, especially inside the country, and not only Russians, I mean, so if it's a contract killing, they can involve citizens of other countries. That's why it's very important for us right now to stop all these signings and the push for the dual citizenship law. We need to close the borders. Otherwise, these kinds of entries, seemingly not by Russians, but actually serving Russian interests, could end badly for us. And in fact, are already ending badly for our security services. That's why right now the security services need to generate measures related to full control within the country over people who are passing through in transit or arriving here from third countries. This is something we also need to understand. It's not just Russians who can be dangerous for usury. It could be anyone. For example, maybe Azerbaijanis like that couple who came in. So first of all, the security services need to draft laws. And secondly, they must urgently stop the advancement of this unconstitutional law on dual citizenship. In the same way, other people from other countries could come here and by obtaining Ukrainian citizenship, settle in. And then how will you catch them? After they commit a crime, what will you say to the victims' families then? Well, okay, let's say you caught them, not just caught them and shot them. No questions asked. But you can't bring a life back. And that's a big problem for our people, our security services, our operatives who still have a lot of work ahead of them. The liquidation operation in Russia will continue for another 10 to 15 years after our victory. And in order to avoid running into such problems, these issues must be resolved internally without question. They shouldn't be coming here. We shouldn't have people from other third countries, and especially not such problematic infiltrations.
Roman Grigorievich, what should be done with collaborators? Because I read information that they were given weapons in a cache. Who were they? We see a huge number of Ukrainians who work for the FSB for money, and they themselves provide targeting information. This is simply betrayal. And what percentage of Ukrainians are working for the Russian Federation, for the FSB?
In 2014, in Donetsk, after the Russians started entering Donbass, a certain organization was created to counteract military actions. At that time, I was an advisor on military affairs to the governor of Donetsk region. So in this so-called operational headquarters, in the operational headquarters that was created to address issues of countering the Russians, there were a lot of our local people, seemingly from the SBU and the Ministry of Internal Affairs, that is the police at that time as well. Well, these policemen, these so-called policemen, later handed me over to the Russian GRU officers. So that's the kind of fifth column we have inside more than 10,000 Donetsk cops in a flash switched to Russian cops with that double-headed cockade. So none of that has gone anywhere. In 2022, hundreds of police officers switched to the Russian side, including the SBU, including those structures, essentially, that are supposed to ensure security. It's good that now Malyuk has worked with his counterintelligence people First, they cleaned up the SPU, and now they're trying to clean up other areas. Well, we have a lot of these problems. It's not even just about what collaborators mean. These are outright traitors who work either for money or not for money, confidants of the Russian special service. But they definitely exist, and this needs to be fought. Our special services need to fight this, of course, by getting involved. But we have a whole problem here. We have several structures that are practically untouched, left over since 2014, like the Ministry of Internal Affairs, which still hasn't been reformed. They created the police. The national police was made part of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. So what was the point of creating the police if the Ministry of Internal Affairs was left as it was? How many more traitors like that are still there? Let me repeat. In 2014, there were more than 10,000. And in 2022, there are definitely hundreds of thousands. How many are still left? And it's the same story across all the special services in every direction. This is a big problem for us. And Malyuk's counterintelligence guys still have a lot of work ahead of them. The guys are already exhausted, sweating from all this work. So, of course, everyone needs help everywhere. But this is specialized work. And it's very difficult for people without specific expertise in this area to handle it. That's why we need to clean house. What other choice is there?
Finally, Roman Grigorovich, a Belarusian helicopter shot down a Russian attack drone that was heading toward Ukraine. According to RBC Ukraine, this happened when a Belarusian Mi-24 helicopter attacked and destroyed a Russian Geran-type attack UAV on the 12th of July, which was flying toward Ukraine. Were they simply defending their own airspace?
They were defending their oil refineries from a retaliatory strike by Ukrainian MLRS, which can definitely reach the Mosul oil refinery. It's only 40 to 50 kilometers away, and we have smerch systems that could completely wipe out the refinery. Russian or rather Belarusian, naturally, for any reason, basically, if drones start coming at us from Belarus, no one will even ask, why did you start striking back? Because already in 2022, Russians were coming in from the Belarusian side. So it doesn't matter how or by what means the Belarusians will ensure the security of our borders shared with Belarus, this way or that way. Their main responsibility should be to prevent Russian drones from entering their territory, not to mention launching those drones into our territory. They should be involved in intercepting these Russian drones when they cross the Russian-Belarusian border, not just the Belarusian-Ukrainian one. In other words, that's the only way they can ensure their own security, the security of their economy. And as for us burning it down, well, let Lukashenko have no doubt about it. We'll do it immediately, right away, as soon as anything like what happened in 2022 or any kind of Gerbera flies into our territory from Belarus.
Dear audience, Roman Grigorievich and I are working for you, for audiences all over the world, so that people know the truth about Russian aggression and Russia's war against Ukraine. We would like as many people as possible around the world to support Ukraine and stand on the side of light. That's why every like, every comment, and every subscription helps ensure that as many people as possible around the world see this video. We work on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Dear audience, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the comments, write a few kind words in support of Roman Grigorievich, the armed forces of Ukraine, and our partnership. Roman Grigorievich, thank you, and as always, see you again on Wednesday.
Goodbye.